Why, hello there, old sports. Now, usually in most video games, getting hit is not a good idea. In fact, you should try to avoid getting hit as much as possible. Obviously. But a few days ago, I got recommended a video by fellow YouTuber Greggy Grease, where he tried and mostly beat Hollow Knight by only healing. So I thought, what if I did the opposite, and beat Hollow Knight by only getting hit? Now, usually whenever I do one of these challenges, because I'm a dirty cheater pumpkin eater, I give myself the required equipment at the start of the challenge run to actually make the challenge run possible, because most of the time, you aren't able to get anywhere in the game without killing things, and usually the only way we can deal damage to enemies is locked behind bosses that we can't hurt. But that changes today, because after watching the previously mentioned video, I learned a few glitches and tricks that just might be able to get me where we need to go. No bosses required. First up, the only way we can turn our own damage back on our foes is with the charm Thorns of Agony, which causes damaging thorns to sprout out from us every time we take a hit. To get the Crystal Heart, we need both the Mantis Claw to traverse throughout Hallownest, the Lantern to get into the Crystal Peaks, and the Vengeful Spirit spell to use the Fireball Skip trick. Minus our Shade, we can only damage enemies through Thorns of Agony, so we're gonna have to use a few tricks to get where we need to go. Our first goal is to get into the Fungal Wastes, and then to get the Mantis Claw. Once we have the Claw, we can enter Deepnest, get the Tram Pass, and then take the tram in Deepnest over to the Ancient Basin, where we can then ascend into the City of Tears and to the King Station, and thus we get access to the elevator to the Resting Grounds. From the Resting Grounds, we can enter the Forgotten Crossroads from the entrance above Salubra. From there, we're on the other side of the Gruzmother boss, meaning we don't have to kill her to get access to Sly. Once we talk to Sly, we can then grind Geo by letting enemies run into hazards to get enough Geo to buy the Lantern. Either before or after we get the Lantern, we can go get the Vengeful Spirit spell, and then from there, we can enter the Crystal Peaks and get the Crystal Heart. And then from there, all we need to do is make our way to Green Path, and the charm is ours. And since we'll have most of the abilities we'll need by then anyway, it's pretty much a straight shot to the rest of the Dreamers, and then to the Hollow Knight. The plan is simple. Except it really isn't. We start out the game with only access to the Forgotten Crossroads, and the only way to get to the Fungal Wastes from the Crossroads requires the dash, aka Mothwing Cloak. And that itself requires us to defeat Hornet in Green Path, which we can't even get to Green Path because we would need to kill the Elder Balder with the Vengeful Spirit, and that's not us taking damage, therefore it is not allowed. So here's the first wacky trick of the run. Remember how Marmu wanted to learn how to fly? Let's show her how. On the Steam release of Hollow Knight, Team Cherry was gracious enough to allow us to downpatch to the previous Grim Troop update, which came out before the Godmaster update, and more importantly for this video, the Lifeblood update, which basically culled a lot of the glitches in the game. If we downpatch the game, and then free all 5 grubs in the Forgotten Crossroads with the assistance of our Shade, we can return to Grubfather and he will give us a Mask Shard. If we jump, and right before we hit the Mask Shard, we open our menu, then we try to pause, and then unpause, we will fly. In this glitched, floaty state, gravity will not pull us downwards, so we need to be careful unless we want to softlock ourselves or just put us in a position where we have to die. Right after you exit the Grubfather room, you can jump and hit the underside of a slope, and that will send you downwards. Depending on what angle you hit it at, you'll either go faster or slower, and for our sake, we want to try to go as slow as possible. Now, if we get hit by an enemy, all of our momentum will be reset because we get knocked around a bit, so you want to try your best to avoid all the Gruzzers. But with our newfound power of flight, we can make our way past the Aspid Arena that I forgot to mention earlier. The way you defeat them without killing them is by just baiting them into falling on the or getting impaled by the little spikes in the ceiling. So go past that, go into the entrance to the Fungal Wastes, make your way down to Leg Eater, and sit on the bench and quit out to reset yourself out of the glitched state. Now, before we update the game back to the current patch, we need to take advantage of the glitches in this version of the game to do a very precise double explosion pogo to enter the Mantis Village. Because unfortunately, the entrance to the village, if you die in the acid puddle there, the shade will spawn out of your reach, which is kind of unfair, but hey, we just have to work with it. So we have to do a very precise explosion pogo to get into the Mantis Village, and unfortunately it took me so long that I lost the footage. This happens again later too, by the way. I just want to state that, like, some of these tricks I tried to pull off took me so long that I lost the footage multiple times. I am a disgrace of a YouTuber. Anyways, once we actually reach the western part of the Mantis Village, we can set up a shade skip, allowing us to reach the Mantis Claw. Then from there, we can sit on a bench, Mantis Claw in hand, and we can finally update back to the current patch. Now, I know I'm kind of blazing past this, but that's just because I was spending a lot of time failing, and I spent about an hour to 2 hours on this whole section that I just described alone. So, I'm just going to skip over it because there's nothing really interesting to see there beyond me. I feel like it kind of loses the novelty after you see me die 2 or 3 times. You kind of get bored of it and just want to move on to the next thing. So, we're going to move on. Thankfully, for most rooms, the claw can act as a substitute for the dash, but we still want to get the dash just for convenience and because there are a few rooms that need it. Anyways, after dying because I didn't commit to a jump like a coward, I make my way to the Queen's Station, which not only gives us a way back into Greenpath later, but it's just a good way to get back to Dirtmouth / every other stag station we need. However, we're not actually going to use this stag station right now, we're just unlocking it while we're in the general area. Because right now, our main objective is to reach Deep Nest. Thankfully, we don't actually need the dash to get here. Like I said, all we need is the claw, and we can make it to the room where you would find Spore Shroom, hit the breakable wall that goes to the area where you can talk to the Moss Prophet, walk in there, walk out, fall down the pit that breaks under your feet, and now we're in Deep Nest. From there, we make a mad dash to the hot spring, and then from there, we make a mad dash to the failed tramway. Unfortunately, I don't have much to explain here because we're just kind of running past enemies because we couldn't even fight them if we wanted to. After grabbing the tram pass and quitting out because I don't want to deal with all the dirt carvers, I make my way down to the hot spring again, make my way to the tram and damage boost past a bunch of Garpeeds in the process because this room is hellish without the dash, and I can finally make it to the ancient basin. After dodging a bunch of sentries, I reach the elevator shaft which I can then climb up, and I'm almost to the city, except I can't reach because I can't make it to the platform. However, thankfully, one of the sentries will kindly stab me, knocking me onto the platform so I don't have to make the jump myself. Thank you, sir. From there, we can reach King's Station, which acts as another stagway we can go to, and then from there, we can head up in the direction of the Soul Vessel fragment, but we're actually really here for the elevator up to the resting grounds. While we're up here, we can grab the Dream Nail because we'll need it later to kill the Dreamers. From there, we can cross the Blue Lake and reach the ruined village where Salubra resides. And then we can also find Sly here, which then unlocks his shop. Thankfully, we can break the floor from underneath so we don't have to go the long way again, and now we're free to explore the crossroads. And by explore, I mean we repeatedly lure a bunch of Vengeflies into the gaping jaws of Gomes that shoot out of the floor, and then we can collect their Geo. And after only a few hours of grinding, we can have enough money to buy the Lumafly Lantern, which allows us entrance into the Crystal Peaks. But before we enter the mines, we're going to need the Vengeful Spirit so we can do a triple fireball skip. If you've played the game, you've probably noticed that you get pushed backwards a little bit when you use the Vengeful Spirit mid-air, so we're going to take advantage of that to make just enough room so we can land on a platform without having the dash. Unfortunately, the only way to the Vengeful Spirit is through the False Knight, so I'm going to have to kind of bend the rules here a little bit. Now, technically, since when you hit the False Knight and its face isn't exposed, you don't gain any soul, So I'm going to make the stupid argument that since I don't get any soul, I'm not actually damaging the False Knight, aka the Maggot, I'm actually just damaging the armor. And the armor isn't alive, thus it doesn't invalidate the rules, thus I'm allowed to knock it over, thus I'm allowed to since I'm not killing the False Knight, I'm allowed to knock it over and then activate the next phase, which breaks the it weakens the planks on the western side of the arena, so I can break them, escape the arena, and then go to the mound. From there, we talk to the shamans so they summon the Vengeful Spirit spell, but before we gather it, we set up a glitch. Now, this is possible in the current patch of the game, but if you attack and then press up and right at the edge of the bench where you can still see the rest prompt, you can move away from the bench and you'll still see the little rest prompt floating above the bench. So what we do here is, now that this glitch is set up, we jump into the Vengeful Spirit spell, watch the little cutscene, and then press up, which somehow teleports us back into the bench. Somehow. I don't know how this works, I'm just following a guide on YouTube. Now, the reason we did this is obviously because the only reason to get out of here normally is by killing the Elder Balder with Vengeful Spirit, so we're just going to avoid doing that. Now that we have an unnecessary amount of equipment for not defeating a single boss, we're able to go to the Crystal Peaks and complete the little parkour arena to gather the Crystal Heart, and as you notice by the lack of footage on screen right now, I lost that footage as well. Now, the video I mentioned at the start of this video, that video kind of goes over the same setup to get Crystal Heart, so if you want to see someone do this better and more entertaining than I am, go watch that video. Also, just support that guy in general, because he has less subscribers than me somehow, even though his videos are like infinitely better. So go support him, please. I command you as my loyal audience or whatever. Now that we have Crystal Heart and everything else we've acquired so far, we can return to the Queen Station via the Stagways, and then ascend up the Fog Canyon into Greenpath. From there, we make our way to the Thorns of Agony room, and after 8.5 hours, we can finally reach Thorns of Agony, meaning we can finally defend ourselves and fight enemies properly.
What do we do now? What do you mean? Now we can finally play the game.
Now that I have the ability to actually defeat bosses, I immediately go fight Hornet for the Mothwing Cloak. Not gonna lie, it's kind of funny how weird Hollow Knight Hornet looks compared to her Silksong version, where her cloak is a lot more vibrant, but I digress. Anyways, thankfully this fight only took me a little over 10 minutes, so it could have been longer I guess, but it definitely could have been shorter. Now to actually explain Thorns of Agony a bit better, each strike the attack does exactly your nail damage, and sometimes since the hitbox lingers, it can hit the enemy twice, so at most you're going to be doing twice your nail damage each time you get hit. Now, I'm sure you know it takes more than 8 hits to defeat Hornet here, so we're gonna have to be a little bit smart to actually not die. Now thankfully, since we collected the Dream Nail in our journey to get here, we can actually strike Hornet with the Dream Nail to gather soul, and thankfully this does no damage, meaning it's completely allowed. Now unfortunately, Hornet has a pretty small hitbox because she's a pretty small boss, so we have to wait for her to do her Threadstorm move, charge the Dream Nail up right as she begins to fall, so we hit her with the Dream Nail right as she hits the ground, getting us soul, so we can heal, rinse and repeat, and keep damaging when our health is full. Now surprisingly, using Thorns of Agony actually takes some amount of skill somehow, because whenever you take a hit, you get knocked away from the enemy, so you want to try to make sure that they're moving towards you with their attack, so that they carry into the hitbox when the thorns activate, if that makes sense. Because we really do want to do our best to get as many double hits as we can, so we don't have to draw the fight out too much. Because the real problem about long boss fights isn't necessarily that it's just tedious, but the longer a boss fight goes on, the more mistakes you'll make, and those mistakes can add up over time, and it hurts a lot more when you die to a boss you've spent 10 minutes fighting compared to one you only spent a minute fighting, if that makes any sense. But thankfully, we were able to defeat Hornet on our first try, gaining the Mothwing Cloak as our prize. And with that, pretty much anywhere in Hallownest is ours to explore. Now that I have the cloak, as well as every other movement ability minus the wings, I immediately go collect a bunch of stuff. First, I free a bunch of grubs so I can collect the Grub Song Charm. Now, the Grub Song Charm gives you 15 soul when you take damage. For reference, you get 11 soul for striking an enemy, and it takes 33 soul to heal. Considering the premise of this challenge run, we're gonna be getting a lot of mileage out of Grubsong. I also make sure to grab the Deep Focus charm, which, at the cost of making our heal slower, allows us to heal 2 masks at once instead of 1. Now I can't actually equip this charm yet because I don't have an adequate amount of notches, but I'm going to collect as many charms as I can so I can buy more charm notches from Salubra. On top of that, I also start collecting mask fragments and soul vessel fragments. While I don't end up maxing out on soul and health, I'm just going to try to grab as many as I can comfortably that don't require me to go too far out of the way to grab. Now you might be wondering, Puppet Wraith, couldn't you just use the same strategy you used for Hornet on all the other bosses? Why are you getting so much more equipment? And the answer to that is that one single boss in this run, due to one gimmick, will cause us to need all this stuff, so I'll get to them later. The last thing I do for now is use my remaining Geo to go upgrade my nail at the Nailsmith in the City of Tears. After I upgrade my nail, I head down into the Ancient Basin to fight in the little Moloch arena where I can grab another pale ore, allowing me to upgrade my nail once again. Now that I can do more damage, I go to Relic Seeker Lem in the City of Tears to sell all of the relics I've been holding on to for cash. We will need it later. Using said cash, I return to the Crossroads and buy a bunch of charms from Salubra, allowing us the ability to buy more charm notches from Salubra. And just to be clear, my endgame charm loadout that I'm working towards is Grubsong, Thorns of Agony, Deep Focus, and Fragile Heart, which I'm about to buy from Leg Eater in a few moments after this little transaction. And after buying Fragile Heart from Leg Eater, I go fight the 2 Shroomal Ogres to unlock another charm notch. Even though I'm only going for the basic Hollow Knight ending and that doesn't require us to get the Monarch Wings, aka the double jump, I still want to go get them anyway because a few collectibles I want are, well, they require the Monarch Wings for you to be able to grab them, so... Considering Broken Vessel in its base normal form isn't really a hard boss, I decided that I might as well just go kill it now, get the double jump, and move on with my day. And thankfully, the Broken Vessel went down pretty easy all things considered, or at least easy relative to some of the other bosses in this challenge run. It also went down pretty quickly, again relative to other bosses in the challenge run. This was the first boss fight I fought using Deep Focus, so I had to kind of get used to which opportunities I could take to heal, and something I noticed is that sometimes you're just going to have to risk it and you're going to have to go for unsafe heals and just hope luck helps you out. Because even if you get hit, yeah, you wasted some soul, but you're still damaging the boss half the time anyway, so it's not like it's completely useless to just take risky heals. Also, this is not really that important, but there's a visual glitch with the health bar, where if you heal right as you get hit with Deep Focus, you'll see that you'll have 2 empty masks, but technically you'll only have 1 missing mask, it just doesn't show that one of them healed. Again, it's just a visual glitch, I just wanted to explain that because there's a few moments in the footage you'll see where I'll take damage and my health bar won't go down, so that's the explanation behind that. But like I said, the Broken Vessel goes down pretty easily, which doesn't really make sense considering it's a mid-game boss, but what do I know. Then again, it's hard to get overwhelmed by the balloons when every time you get hit by said balloons, you pop them. Regardless, we grab the Monarch Wings, ignore Lost Kin, and move on with the challenge. Now that I have every movement ability I could ever ask for, excluding Isma's Tear, but like I said, every movement ability I could ask for, I go fight the first Dreamer, and, well, the first Dreamer Guardian, which is the Watcher Knights. Now, I did break the chandelier above the arena, causing one of the 6 Watcher Knights to be dead from the start of the fight, but I don't think it's cheating, and honestly, I don't care if you do. Anyways, this fight was actually really tough, and that's mostly because of 2 things. 1, it's really hard to dream nail the knights, because what ends up happening is the only attack you can ever, safely dream nail them on is when they do the bounce roll attack. And the thing about that is sometimes it's really hard to predict where they'll be, so you kind of just have to take a shot in the dark and hope the dream nail hits as they land. And if you're watching this footage, you might be thinking that I know what I'm doing here, but I definitely do not. Half the time I'm just saying, fuck it, we ball. On top of that, whenever the Watcher Knights are rolling, they're invulnerable from nail strikes. And for some reason, Thorns of Agony counts as a nail strike. Well, I guess it makes sense, their shells just block the thorns, but anyways, I can't do damage to them when they're rolling, and that's really inconvenient. So, out of the 3 attacks they can do, 1 is good for dream nailing, the little sword swipe attack they do is good for damaging them. And then the third attack where they do the normal, like, roll where they just roll across the ground, that attack just wastes time, so that sucks. Also, keep in mind that their nail attacks have a very long range, so they'll knock you back really quickly, meaning it's harder to get double hits, which also sucks. So this fight usually just gets drawn out a lot. It somehow took 2 minutes less than the first Hornet fight, but it was still excruciating. And at least with Hornet, it was kind of monotonous and boring. This one I felt like I was fighting for my damn life the entire time. Anyways, eventually the Watcher Knights go down, and we're able to go kill Lurien. Now you might be thinking, hey, isn't striking Lurien with your nail count as killing him? Technically he was a vegetable, so I'm just making a salad. The Puppet Wraith YouTube channel on YouTube does not condone or support bullying or abuse of disabled people. Anyway, terrible jokes aside, after that, I acid skip into the Fog Canyon, grab another Charm Notch, which is the last one we need for now to complete our build, and then from there, I go fight Umu, and I'm gonna be honest, Umu wasn't that interesting. I was just running around half the time, the boss has a very big hitbox, and it moves pretty slowly, so it's easy to Dream Nail, and then whenever Quirrell pops its membrane, I can just jump into it, and hit it, I guess, so it's not like there's anything really interesting about this boss fight. It's kinda just there, I'm gonna be honest. At least since we've upgraded our nail twice, it at least doesn't take very many cycles. Like, it's still tedious and annoying, yes, but it could be more tedious and more annoying. After killing Monomon, I go straight towards Deep Nest, and on the way I do make a stop to kill Nosk for the pale ore it guards, because I want to upgrade my nail one more time, and I'll get to why later. Well, I guess you can understand, I just want more damage. Anyways, after that I kill Hera, and now that all the Dreamers are dead, I can finally fight the Hollow Knight and finish the game. And I died terribly. Yeah, there's one quality the Hollow Knight has that makes this fight exponentially more difficult than literally any other fight in this game. And that single thing is that it cannot be Dream Nailed. It is immune to Dream Nailing. If you try to Dream Nail it, you just get knocked backwards, so that's terrible. So the only source of soul in this fight is the soul we get from Grubsong. And at the first attempt I had at this fight, I was not healing at the right time, so I feel like I was wasting most of that soul anyways, and I wasn't even getting the heals off. This is gonna be a war of attrition, and it just comes down to who can outlast the other, brother against brother. However, thankfully we aren't gonna have to prepare too much more, because all we need is one more pale ore and some more geo to upgrade our nail, and with that, that should give us the damage boost needed to defeat the Hollow Knight, hopefully. Since we have the Monarch wings, I go back to the Crystal Peaks, climb up to the Hallownest Crown and grab the pale ore there. I then go defeat enemies in the city until I have enough geo to upgrade my nail, and then, after that, I make sure to harvest some soul from the enemies outside the Black Egg Temple, and then with that, I equip Fragile Heart, and get ready for the final fight of this challenge. Once I enter that room, neither of us are ever coming out again. But the thing is, only one of us will be breathing in the end. And with that, I've proven that yes, you can in fact beat Hollow Knight by only taking damage. Sort of. Mostly. If you've made it to the end of the video, I would just like to thank you for watching. Well, and I want to thank anyone for watching, but you get what I'm trying to say. It means the world to me that you'd spend your time watching my silly little video, and I hope I can make more that are even better than this one someday. I'd like to thank my 2 Patreon members, Sven Biscuit and Iconic Cat, for their continued support. It means the world to me. If you liked this video, please consider commenting, and subscribing. I love reading your comments and hearing your feedback. Also, please go watch Greggy Grease's newest Hollow Knight video. He deserves way more subs than I have, so if you're not subbed to him, but you're subbed to me, please go sub to him. And I'm not trying to be, mean to myself or something. I just mean, his videos are pretty good, so please go watch them. With that, I think I've said about everything that needs to be said without me rambling on like a lunatic any longer. So, like I said earlier, please comment, and subscribe. Have a good day, or whatever time it is for you, and I'll see you on the flip side. And by that I mean maybe next year, because I'm probably going to take a break for Christmas. Okay, bye!